Hi, and welcome back to Hypershade Tutorials. In these mini-series, I'm going to be teaching you how to make a object pickup system with a simple and effective third-person controller system. Now, the object pickup system I'm referring to is a video I uploaded regarding the control system, where the game made by Remedy, you can look at objects and pick them up from a distance. They get highlighted. You're able to snap them to your position and chuck them at enemies. That's something we're going to be covering in this mini-series. Now, before we start this tutorial, you're going to need a couple of assets. So from the Unity Asset Store, you need to go and download the following packages. So the first package you need is Invector Third Person Controller Lite. Once you have that, just add it to your basket. And then you're going to need a asset called Cinemachine. Once you have that, also add that. So once you've done that, go ahead and go into Unity. Now, I already have my package unloaded and imported into Unity. Now, if you don't know how to do that, I'll show you. So if you go into Windows and you go into Package Manager. Now, I've just snapped my window over here. That's fine. You'll make sure you need to be logged into your Unity account in order to see all your assets which you own. So once you've done that, if you look for your history, you'll find your assets. So if you look for the Invector Third Person Controller Lite and Cinemachine, just click on them and there should be a button over here that says download. Download that and you should be ready to go. After you download it, it says import. So hit import and it'll import all the correct files you need. So once you've done that, look for the Invector file and look for the sample scene. Now you're going to get something like this. You're going to have a character in here and you're going to have a character third person camera. Delete that and leave this one. Now on this character you're going to have multiple scripts, so you can delete those and just leave the character controller, which by standard default it doesn't come with a character controller, which I added myself, so you can do so. You can put the same character controller I have and you can copy the values as you see. So you can go right ahead and pause the video and copy these values. Right, you should have something that looks like this. You'll have a character standing here in a T-pose and you will have a character controller on him. Now the next step is, let me delete this because I was doing some tests beforehand. We need to change the axis of this actual environment, because what happens is when you add the Cinemachine character controller camera, it's going to look in the wrong z-axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new empty and I'm just going to make sure this is set to 0 like so. I'm going to call this level holder. I'm going to drag the first person controller and level holder, third person controller level, and drag them in here. What I want to do then is just want to test something quickly. No, okay, it won't. So I need to rotate this on the y-axis and I'm going to put it as 180 like so. That's in the right direction. Good. So you can see the z-axis is following the right direction which I wanted to go. So I'm just going to double check everything, especially with the third person controller. Good. Okay, that's fine. So we can leave these items in here. Do not take them out. So you'll have something that looks like this for now. Okay. Just zoom into your character and we're going to make a camera. So right click on your level holder and create camera. Right, so the z-axis is in the right direction. What I'm going to do is actually undo that, so you should have no camera. Right click on your character himself, create camera. There you go. That lines the camera directly underneath him. We could just drag it up, pull it back a bit, up a bit more. I'm just going to work with the, I do apologize, it's a bit laggy because I'm recording at the same time. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I like that. Well, actually here, so my camera settings are 0.17 on the X, 1.44 on the Y, and minus 1.72 on its Z axis. Now, once you've done that, I want you to go ahead and click on Cinemachine. So once you have it imported, you'll see a new tab pop up here. Click on that and click on Freelook Camera. There you go. So it's going to currently look something like this. Click back on your main camera. Sorry, your third person camera. Go back to your scene view. Okay. Oops, what have I got selected? There you go. What I want to do now is I want to make a empty game object inside the player. So right click, create empty, and create empty. It's going to make an object down here. We're going to rename this to look at object. Okay, so this is what the camera is going to be looking at. And I'm going to drag this around its shoulder length though. I'm going to bring it up around here. Sorry, I had my snaps turned on. That's why I was wondering why it's not dragging properly. So I'm going to leave that around its shoulder length, as you can see. Then I want you to go ahead and click on CM Freelook. I'm going to rename this to CM Freelook Cam, like so. And where it says follow, we're going to drag the armature character. And where it says look at, we're going to drag the look at object. Now it looks like it's in the wrong axis again. Bear with me. Let's just see what it looks like in game view. Right, so it's on him. So drag the Freelook camera inside to the camera. I'm going to go ahead and reset it from here. Okay, so you should have something that looks like that. So leave the character armature in there as well, and leave the look at target as well. I recommend you leave on save during gameplay, and I would deselect common lens and leave it as this. The binding mode, select your world space, spine curve, I'm going to put to 0.5, and the heights are dependent on your choices. So at the moment, if you look into your scene view, you're going to see some rays projecting out the camera. The top ray, it shows you how far the camera can go upwards. The middle ray shows you how much you can rotate around the camera, around the player, what your radius is, and your bottom one shows you what the minimum radius on the bottom is. Now you can adjust these real time. So the top ray, as you can see, for example, if I start reducing this number, and you see the spine starts to reduce. Oops, sorry, let me reselect that again. And the radius of it is quite big, so I'm just going to leave that about 1.2, like so. The middle radius, which is the rotation one around the character, is a bit too high for me, so I'm going to put that around the player's shoulder height. Well, actually a bit lower than that, but the torso. And the radius is also okay. Now that gives me an option to reduce the height as well for the top rig, which I am going to do. So I'm going to bring that down here. So if I look in game view, how's that looking now? It's looking a bit better. Now the bottom rig is how low the camera can go. So I'm going to drag this down to the player's foot. I'm going to keep the radius very minimal on that, so like so. So these are my settings. So if you want to copy these, again, you can pause the video and you can go right ahead. Okay, so now if we run the game, let's see what happens. Also, if you notice, this is not fully aligned to the shoulder area. So if I select the look at target, I'm going to put this at 0. I'm going to put this at 1.5. What was that? 1 point. There we go. Leave the Y and just hit 0 on that. So if we run the game, let's see what happens. There we go. We can rotate around the around the player like so. We can look up. We can look down. But we can't go down enough. That's fine. Now I do not like that you can't go high enough. So again, like I said, you can adjust roll time. So click on the C and free look cam. Make sure you have save during gameplay turned on. What I will do, I will go down into my scene view, and if we click here, and I'm going to drag my game window and I'm going to snap it to the other side of it so I can see what's going on real time. So I'm going to drag my camera to the highest point, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the top rig and I'm going to start dragging this away, and the radius of it I'm going to pull backwards. So this is what I like. So 3.5 and a radius of 2.32. So I'm going to drag the game window back into my normal view, and there we go. So I can look at my character from the bottom view, I can look at my character from the top view, and I can rotate around him. Perfect. Now the next step is to make the character actually move. So let's get on with that. So we can stop this. We don't need to be afraid of saving all this stuff. It's auto saving. So just hit stop. And don't worry about the camera view at the moment. When you run the game, it should be okay. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the player. Sorry, not on the player, on add component. So click on the player and click on add component. I'm going to call this script player movement. Player movement. That should be okay. Player movement, and then hit add, create and add. That will create a new script added to the player. Once it's done that and it's fully compiled, just double click and open in MonoDevelop or in Visual Studios, which is what I use. Now before we do crack on, if you do have any issues with your Visual Studios that it doesn't show you the components that are linked to each command, you can go preferences. You see where it says external script editor. If you drop down, you can select what you wish the scripts to open in. I have MonoDevelop. Mine was set to Visual Studios 2015 and was causing me errors, and I've got 19 and 17. So you can choose what you like. So I'm going to double click and open this in Visual Studios. Good. So let's get cracking. So above the start, I'm going to need a couple of variables. First one I'm going to need is public float move speed, and I'm going to set this by default to 0.04. okay, if you do this, let me zoom into the code for you guys a bit. Make sure you put an F because C# needs to know that's a float, so make sure you do that, please. The next one we're going to need is public float strafe speed. And again, I'm going to set this to 0.04 for now. I can adjust this in the editor. Right now, we only need these two as the main ones. We're not going to be covering jump in this video. That'll be in the next video. The only other one we need is public character controller. And I'm going to call this player controller. Like so. Save. Now in the start function, actually let's change the start to awake, please. So if we change that to awake, like so, we're going to put player controller equals. Now because the player character controller is actually on the player that we've selected, and the script is on the actual player itself. What I mean by this is, if you look at mind this, you're going to see some errors. If you look at the character, the third person controller light, On that we have the character controller and we have the player movement script. So all we're going to say is get component. We don't need to justify what transform has that component, because this is the actual component that has the character controller. So back into Visual Studios, and we're going to put get component, second one down the line, and then inside here we're going to put character controller and closing brackets like so, and a semicolon. So that's just telling the system as soon as the game starts, immediately on this variable assign the character controller that's on the current controller. Now we don't currently want to use update at this moment, so what I recommend you do is change this to late update. So I'm going to get rid of these comments, don't really need them in there. Right, in here we're going to put the following variables. Now actually, before we do that, we can actually make these up here, so I might as well use them here. So public float, I'm going to call this horizontal. Sorry about that, let's call that horizontal. And I'm going to close that like so. That's nice for horizontal. There we go. Like so, we're going to duplicate this. And I'm going to call this one vertical. Okay, once you've done that, come back into late update. And over here, I'm going to say horizontal equals to input dot get axes open bracket speech marks, and I'm going to call horizontal in here. So we're going to look for the horizontal movement. Okay, I'm going to put the closing semicolon after the two brackets. After this, I'm going to control and press D, that will duplicate that, and I'm going to change this to vertical like so. I'm going to change this to vertical as well. Okay, like so. Good. Next step is very straightforward. We're going to create a let's do that above here as well, a vector 3. So public vector 3, and I'm just going to call this move like so. Okay, come back down here and we're going to use move equals to new vector 3, and we're going to pass in 3 components. So for the x-axis, we're going to put down horizontal, which is the variable we created above. For the y-axis, we're going to leave 0, and for the z, we're going to put vertical. Underneath here, we're going to put player controller dot move. This is a function built on the character controller, and you have simple move, but we're going to use move open bracket. We're going to put move, which is the variable we created above, which is the vector 3, which holds our component, our horizontal and vertical movement, and we're going to times that by time dot delta time, and then we're going to times that by move speed like so. We can close that off. Now we're going to say if, so let's actually start making the character move, because at the moment it won't move. So if open bracket input dot get key open bracket key code dot W, which is walking forward, or so hold down shift and the key next to Z gives you these 2 little lines, that's or. Input, not sure on the Mac, apologies. Input dot get key open bracket key code dot up arrow closing bracket. It should have 2 closing brackets on this one, and then open curly brace and a closing curly brace. So inside this, we want our character to move forward. So to do that, I'm going to say player controller dot move open bracket transform dot transform direction, open bracket. Now the direction we want to move is forward, so we're going to say vector3 dot forward, like so, and we're going to times that by move speed. Okay, and you should have something that looks like this. So player controller move, open bracket, transform direction, open bracket, vector3 dot forward, closing bracket, times move speed, closing bracket, semicolon. Let's save that. Let's go back into Unity and let's see just what happens. That's just going to update. Okay, so let's just run Unity and see what happens. Right, we can move our camera, we can look down, look up, rotate around the player. Good. Now if I press W, or if I press S, D or A, nothing should happen. But if I press W, we should start to move forward. Okay, you can see. Good. Now I'm just going to stop the engine. I'm going to go back into our script. Alright, so inside here, we're just going to duplicate this. And I'm going to put a comment, so player move back. And I'm going to paste that there. And I'm going to change the up arrow to back. Sorry, down arrow. And I'm going to put this W to D. And where it says forward, we're just going to put back. Alright, and we're just going to copy this again. We're going to paste this down here. Let's just undo that. Let's just copy that again. Okay, I'm going to put this player move left. I'm going to paste that down here. I'm just going to select this line of code. I'm going to tab it in. There's an extra closing bracket here, so we're going to remove that one. No, there isn't. I've done a silly mistake. Undo that. That one is linked to that one. Ah, there we go. That's the fault. Open bracket over here. So that links to this. Yeah, perfect. I'm going to copy this again. Apologies about that. Paste that there. Just going to go to the spaces. And this one, we're going to say if we hit the A key, which will take us to the left, we want this character to move to the left. Left arrow, sorry, I keep getting confused here. Left arrow, left, and instead of move speed, we're going to use strafe speed. So now I can copy this again with the comment this time, and we can paste that down here. And this time we're going to say A to D, and left over to right arrow. So this gives us the chance to move it up. W, A, S, D keys, or our left, right, and up and down arrows as well. So player controller, and this one is going to be right. Save this, and before we do that, let's just change the late update to fixed. I did notice it was jittering a bit. So that should update. Alright. Let's run the game again. Don't worry about the camera just switching places like that. We'll prevent that later on. So if I hit, there we go. That stopped the jitteriness as well. You see it before it was jittering for some reason. That prevents that from happening as well. We can move backwards. Okay, we can move on the A, we can move in the W. We can't move on the S, but we can move in the D. Probably a code mistake. Let's go back inside and find out what happened here. So, alright, there we go. I do apologize. That should be S I linked it with the wrong key. There you go. Save that, go back into Unity, and we should have a simple but yet effective third-person controller movement script with a moving camera which orbits around the character. So let's do that again. Walk forward, walk backwards, left and right. I'm absolutely chuffed. Now in the next tutorial, what I'm going to teach you guys is how to dynamically change the character's rotation. So if the character controller is looking this way at the moment, but the camera is facing backwards, so the Z-axis is facing the character should rotate and walk in the direction of the camera. At this moment, he's not. He's walking towards it. We want him to rotate the other way and walk the opposite direction. And same with left and right. That's going to be the next tutorial. And then after that, we're going to be looking into the player object pulling mechanism, so we can grab objects and start throwing them. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial series. It's going to be a very short series, and throughout the time it will be updated and new things will be added here and there. But I hope you like this, and see you guys soon. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, leave a nice big thumbs up, and don't forget to share it and hit the notification bell to keep yourself updated. This is Hypershade Tutorials. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a nice day.